The paper silver market just flashed a warning sign, but the people controlling the scoreboard are pretending everything is normal. The paper silver market recently flashed a critical warning. The individuals managing the system are treating this warning like any other normal trading day. I was not planning to discuss this today. I was occupied with entirely different work. Then the pattern repeated. It genuinely frustrated me because mainstream analysis presents the lazy story, the comfortable story, the nothing to concern yourself with story. You deserve the complete version, the version that actually helps you understand what comes next. Today is Friday, February 6, 2026, New York time. Before proceeding further, drop a comment indicating what date and time you are observing from. I am genuinely curious about the geographic reach of this analysis. Also, I am running a campaign eliminating copycat channels that steal analysis and dilute it with lower quality. If you appreciate this work, support by subscribing and commenting. Now let me share where this analysis started. Last night I was engaged in extended conversation with several individuals closely following precious metals markets. No studio, no dramatic presentation, just genuine discussion about silver, current conditions, and why everything feels like repeating patterns. Here's what strikes me. Everyone observes price getting manipulated, yet most people still do not recognize the actual battlefield. The battleground is not the quote displayed on screens. The battleground is physical bars, physical coins, actual tangible material. That is where the warning energy is building. You have observed this pattern repeatedly. Silver experiences upward pressure. It starts displaying momentum characteristics. Then suddenly, something smashes it lower. Recently, price got forced down into the mid-80s after approaching higher levels. Previously, it dipped into the low 70s. When this happens, the typical commentary suggests demand is gone. But here is what gets omitted from mainstream analysis. A paper slam can provide temporary relief in futures and options markets while simultaneously making physical problems more severe. That is the critical distinction. Based on recent market discussions, the conversation is not about participants abandoning silver. Rather, the discussion centers on specific Asian buyers treating price declines like clearance sales, quietly accumulating substantial quantities. Recurring rumors describe India alone acquiring tens of millions of ounces while screen prices display minimal movement. Could these rumors be exaggerated? Absolutely. Markets contain numerous unreliable narratives, but even if only half true, the direction matters. The essential point is not precise numbers. The essential point is physical demand does not politely pause because paper traders experience difficulty. Physical markets ignore excuses. Regarding price declines, people consistently miss something important. When quotes drop, you frequently observe unusual splits developing. Paper becomes cheap while real-world prices stay expensive. Screen displays one price. Meanwhile, retail premiums and wholesale availability tell a contradictory story. This represents neither conspiracy nor fraud. This represents natural friction, minting costs, refining costs, shipping costs, financing costs, inventory management costs. These expenses do not evaporate when traders liquidate futures contracts. Therefore, if you observe price without simultaneously watching real-world premiums, you examine single puzzle pieces while claiming to see the complete picture. The premium spread is where systemic stress hides. Markets can appear liquid until they suddenly are not. From conversations in various sectors, certain locations report abundant inventory. These dealers can tolerate volatility. These dealers can manipulate premiums. Other locations are constrained, not merely inconvenient constraints. Rather, they quote extended delivery timelines. Some operations are so overwhelmed with orders they cannot ship quickly because entire pipelines become congested when everyone demands simultaneously. This explains why experienced physical stackers consistently repeat one mundane statement: possession changes everything. It sounds boring until conditions make it critical. If you participate exclusively in paper markets, you trust systems that can rewrite rules instantly. They move prices with a click. They also move contract specifications with a click. Anyone observing market cycles understands exactly how this movie concludes. When paper mechanisms cannot deliver contract implications, systems locate legal pathways for cash settlement. This process gets labeled extraordinary events. The mechanism continues operating. Nobody announces this explicitly. They simply modify fine print. Some people hear this and insist such actions are impossible. They are entirely possible. These contracts contain escape mechanisms. Contracts include clauses emphasizing orderly markets, system integrity, and extraordinary circumstances. These phrases sound responsible. They also grant institutions flexibility, choosing least painful outcomes for themselves. Do not expect institutions choosing your preferred outcomes over their survival. The actual game involves recognizing when rulebooks get deployed. London-centered pricing structures always strike me as comical. They are not true exchanges. They function as pricing discovery rituals with ceremonial elements. Methods have been adjusted repeatedly, labels have been renamed, presentations have been modernized, Polish has been applied, but underlying reality remains unchanged. It is a pricing mechanism. It is not a physical delivery mechanism. This distinction matters profoundly, understanding where actual metal flows. The genuine question is not whether they can print numbers. Obviously, they print numbers. The genuine question is whether they can physically ship bars. Let me articulate something sounding dramatic. Request careful consideration. If regions historically supplying large bars globally begin prioritizing domestic requirements, or if restrictions tighten, or if logistics compress, then export narratives become fragile. I am not declaring this as certainty. I am saying incentives exist. When incentives shift, behaviors shift accordingly. Currently, silver displays modest upward pressure, then retreats repeatedly. Markets seem attempting breathing through a straw. People get hypnotized by these movements like the quote itself represents truth. It does not. Screen prices are not identical to value. Anyone observing forced market declines understands this uncomfortable reality. Prices function as weapons. They discourage miners from investing. They shake weak position holders. They create false impressions of abundant supplies despite scarcity. Mining operates slowly. Mining does not respond to tweets. Mining does not respond to headlines. Even with excellent deposits, permits, capital, and plans, meaningful production requires 5 to 10 years. This is not opinion. This is Earth timeline, engineering timeline, bureaucracy timeline. Additionally, silver supply contains unexpected characteristics. Substantial silver production is not primary silver. It comes as byproduct from copper, lead, zinc, and gold mining. Therefore, if silver prices surge, no immediate flood of additional silver appears. These mines do not restructure entire operations for silver. They follow economics of primary metals. Supply response moves slower than assumptions suggest. Furthermore, permitting timelines, energy expenses, labor constraints, and regional politics extend project completion dates significantly. From recently published mining sector updates, timeline delays are common. Budget increases occur regularly. Simple opportunities become complicated. This is why extended underinvestment periods do not heal instantly. They heal on geological timescales. Geological time operates without mercy. When prices get suppressed artificially for extended periods, future supply gets starved. Subsequently, everyone expresses shock at insufficient supplies. Layering this onto broader financial conditions reveals additional complexity. The comprehensive financial system wobbles, not collapsing immediately, not necessarily collapsing tomorrow, yet wobbling in patterns resembling prior stress cycles. This matters because metals do not exist in isolation. When liquidity tightens, when leverage becomes stressed, when derivatives malfunction, institutions normally selling stability suddenly require stability themselves. They protect their positions first. Here is how stress typically unfolds. Volatility increases initially. Margin requirements change subsequently. Lenders become selective. Previously safe trades suddenly require additional collateral. When participants cannot post collateral, forced liquidation occurs. This is not moral judgment, this is mechanical reality. The mechanical aspect is brutal. It does not care about beliefs, it cares about payment capability. Even if longer-term analysis is correct, short-term mechanics can cause extreme disruption. This explains why avoiding leverage sounds dull until observing leveraged participants getting destroyed. This is why paper slams work. They need not convince everyone, they simply need forcing sufficient liquidations, creating cascading collapse. Then broader market follows because humans chase momentum. According to latest public filings and balance sheet analysis, major banks maintain complex exposures most people never examine because analysis seems tedious until suddenly it becomes critical. Lease discussions in metals markets sound mystical. They are not. Leases are essentially promise chains. Promise chains function fine until everyone demands simultaneous delivery. Recurring narratives describe major players holding enormous silver obligations through loans, leases, and swaps. If even portions get stressed, This creates incentives, smashing paper prices, shaking participants, and buying time. But here is the twist. Buying time using paper can accelerate physical drains. When quotes decline, real-world buyers do not become frightened. They become excited. They say, "Great, we will accept more." Therefore, tools designed controlling sentiment accelerate inventory drains. This resembles trapdoors. You do not want discovering you stood on it after it opens. Regarding calendar realities, 3-day weekends get ignored, not because weekends are magical, but because they provide convenient windows for institutional maintenance, restructuring, reorganization. It becomes simpler managing chaos when public attention is elsewhere and branches are closed. Consider this thought experiment. If you held deposits exceeding insurance limits in single locations and systems required rapid cleanup, would you prefer managing this during normal work weeks or extended weekends? Exactly. I am not suggesting every weekend involves secret operations. Sometimes weekends are simply weekends. Yet organizations typically prefer low visibility windows. Reduce staffing, minimal news cycles, decrease customer pressure, people managing risk plan accordingly. They consider what actions they would prefer taking before systems break. One simple answer is diversification, not merely investment diversification, access diversification, multiple accounts, multiple institutions, multiple payment pathways if single channels get blocked. Some people structure holdings through legal formations, beneficiary designations, or business accounts spreading insured coverage. This is not casual loophole creation. This reminds us that rules are technical. People reading rules avoid surprises. Most people do not read rules before rules read them. This explains why defensive players diversify continuously. They spread risk. They do not consolidate liquidity into single baskets. They maintain enough access for essential payments. They avoid getting trapped inside single institution frameworks. Cash carries its own risks. Cash is not religious doctrine. Cash is a tool. Difference exists between possessing tools and depending on single doorways. Let us examine metal mechanics further. Trading volumes get discussed frequently. You observe hundreds of millions of ounces trading on paper while observers celebrate supposed market health. This does not demonstrate health. This demonstrates enormous paper layers. Consider this. If worldwide silver mining produces roughly annual supply levels and paper trading moves entire annual supplies within single contract days, what does this reveal? This tells you we observe leverage theater, not price discovery. Leverage is not minor seasoning. Standard futures contracts represent substantial metal relative to posted capital. Therefore, controlling enormous quantities requires minimal capital. This explains paper market power. This also explains abuse potential. You need not create cape-wearing villains. You simply need concentrated positions, thin liquidity, and forced selling mechanisms. Add algorithmic traders reacting to levels. Add headline scanners dumping on keywords. Add funds with rules forcing exposure reduction during volatility spikes. Markets become chain reactions. Paper market liquidity increases ironically during cascades because everyone transacts simultaneously. That is not liquidity, that is stampedes. Most observers miss delivery details. Based on recently published exchange notices and delivery tallies, physical delivery activity shows concentrated bursts. Months begin with certain pacing, then suddenly large blocks arrive. Someone steps forward, deposits capital, states plainly, "I want metal. Not exposure, not forward rolls. I want metal." When this increases in frequency, situations change fundamentally. Shorts stop playing spreadsheet games. They face actual weighted obligations. February deliveries already accumulate meaningfully. While not record-breaking independently, comparisons to prior heavy months reveal significance. Additional days remain when delivery choices beat paper games. Warehouse reports confuse many people. Categories include bars simply sitting in buildings versus bars actually designated for delivery. Not every warehouse bar satisfies contracts. Some belongs to parties unwilling transferring it. Some is encumbered. Some exists for inventory management, not sales. When reading reports, ask genuinely accessible quantities today without negotiation. Answers generally surprise downward. Delivery spikes test available supplies, not theoretical supplies. Delivery cycles matter. If next major cycles become show me bars moments, paper layers get tested beyond headline explanations. Open interest numbers get discussed extensively. Hundreds of millions of ounces sounds impressive. The hidden question is how much interest accepts delivery versus assuming rolls remain available. Historically, most roles that sustain systems. I will push back at common assumptions. Some suggest manufacturers refuse rolling this time. I think possible, not certain. Difference matters. Manufacturers are practical. They prioritize supply chains, financing, timing, consistency. If rolling is cheaper and systems appear stable, many continue rolling. But when systems show cracks, delays increase, premiums rise, availability tightens, weird settlement appears, incentives flip. Then rolling seems risky. Then physical pulls increase. Watch incentives, not narratives. Certain experts continuously claim everything is fine. You know the type: calm tone, dismissive of concerns, talking down to ordinary participants, basically saying do not worry excessively. Meanwhile, actual observable mechanics, inventory reports, delivery patterns, and premiums tell opposite stories. Being wrong once is human. Remaining wrong for years while maintaining smugness is business model. If you felt gaslit about metals markets, you are not crazy. I will pivot to seemingly unrelated topics that connect. Scandals, files, names. You see headlines about major case documents, victims protecting identities, legal deals slowing releases. Why mention this in metals discussions? Because it reminds how power networks operate. Not cartoon villainy, rather boring paperwork and email threads. Based on publicly discussed material, influential people cluster remarkably often. Finance, politics, philanthropy, tech, media, different logos, same gatherings. Sometimes communications make stomachs turn. Executives treating disgraced financiers as trusted advisors, exchanging notes, requesting feedback, acting normal. When stories surface, reactions follow patterns. Denial initially, silence then, reviewing we are told. Legal language deployed, settlement negotiated, delays occur, new headlines displace old ones. This does not prove every accusation. It does reveal reputations get managed like portfolios. You should be cautious converting ugly headlines into single grand theories. Internet loves single sentence explanations for complex worlds. Real worlds are messier. I maintain skeptical positions. I do not ignore patterns. I do not substitute speculation for evidence. This skepticism is exactly what markets require. I do not adjudicate every claim or play detective. I do point out patterns. Institutions protect themselves. Networks protect themselves. They delay. They negotiate. They restructure narratives. Markets operate identically. Let me be precise. I am not saying scandals move silver markets. That is lazy. I am saying identical human behavior appears everywhere. People with power manage perception and maintain control. Understanding this clarifies paper games. This is not about morality. This is about incentives. Now crypto gets emotional for everyone. I watch crypto conversations merge with reset conversations. Many are messy. One crowd treats crypto as perfect escape hatch. Another treats it as manipulation's final boss. Reality is complicated. Public discussions and leaked exchanges suggest questionable individuals participated in early crypto, funding arrangements, introductions, background operations. Maybe true, maybe exaggerated, but here is useful takeaway. If legacy systems stress, crypto systems do not automatically float because they touch now. Through custody, through banking rails, through derivatives. Yes, crypto has derivatives, through corporations holding coins. During crises, forced selling happens unexpectedly. Public companies de-risk, lenders worry, collateral values decline, selling what is available occurs, exchange problems create bottlenecks. When hearing crypto survives anything, skepticism is warranted. When hearing crypto is doomed, skepticism is warranted. Smarter approaches treat it as tools, understand plumbing, do not confuse prices with safety. Custody matters fundamentally. If assets live on others' platforms, you do not own platform problems until you do. I am not prescribing purchases. I am demanding you understand what you actually hold. Physical metal in possession is straightforward, heavy, real, no passwords needed. Digital assets are powerful but fragile. Electricity needs, network dependencies, custodian requirements, regulation uncertainties, human errors. Here is gut check question. If exchanges paused withdrawals for 72 hours, would you feel calm or realize you lack control? This question reveals preparation status. Plans should emphasize resilience. Resilience typically appears boring initially. Back to main silver thread. Here is core idea tying everything together. Control systems depend on participants accepting paper settlement normality. As long as people roll positions, trade leverage, treat delivery as rare, machines keep spinning. But when meaningful participants decide, no, I want actual material, machines must show actual capabilities. That is when pay me becomes more than jokes. What happens next presents scenarios. First scenario shows continuous price smashing in bursts, hoping exhaustion, boredom, panic, exposure sales. Another shows physical premiums creeping higher despite weak quotes. Market screaming quotes are incomplete pictures. Third scenario shows violent repricing when paper gets tested wrong moment, during liquidity events, during weekend resolutions, during delivery cycles. In third scenario, permission seekers get no permission. This explains why calm should not equal safety. Sometimes calm precedes door openings. Something else traps participants. Obsession calling exact bottoms. Forget it. Timing silver like meme coins is wrong game. Markets get pushed around, made to look weak, made to look strong, made to look boring. The point is psychological disruption. Rather than hero trading, focus controllable variables, position sizing, time horizons, custody choices, liquidity planning. If succeeding, share stories. Quiet winners rarely get interviews. Real question surfaces. Is paper quote the price, or is real price whatever acquiring bars costs when everyone else wants them too? Another question. What do you trust stress systems more? Settlable IOUs or physically verifiable items? Before closing, big macro arguments matter for mindsets. Many demand gentle transitions, soft landings, controlled adjustments harming nobody powerful. Sounds nice. Does not fix debt-soaked systems propped by leverage and promises. If promise piles exceed capacity, clearing happens slowly through inflation or quickly through defaults and restructuring. Derivatives layers accelerate clearing. When hearing smooth management, hearing trying. Trying is not succeeding. Tangible assets mattered throughout history, not magically. Rather, they do not depend on others' promises. Should you go all in silver? No. All in wrecks people in anything. Should you respect physical metal asymmetry when available and affordable? That is reasonable discussion. If quotes sit mid-80s while physical tightens, that is not contradiction. That is signal. Paper doing jobs, physical doing jobs quietly. Could they slam again? Of course. Could they push absurdly either direction? Of course. Question is what they accidentally create. They might create biggest physical drains this cycle. If so, next moves announce nothing politely. Simple action if wanted. Stay alert, stay appropriately sized, stay educated. Do not get hypnotized by single screen numbers. Support by subscribing. Comment RJ John AG. Finally, if building strategies that work, share stories motivating others. Take care, keep heads clear. This is educational. My takes based on public information and reasoning, not personal financial advice. You decide. You own outcomes.